ちょっと声が低い。この曲は
ダディダディドゥ最後まであなたに委ねて、壊れるならそれでもいい、もっと狂わせて見せてくれ、僕だけに心の奥まで愛にだからギラギラ燃えたい、命果てる夜明けまで。
Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast. I am Sean Chapman.
And I'm Jonathan Lack.
We are here to talk about stuff this week on the show. We have a very special episode for you all, as you can probably tell, because I am the one handling the intro, because Jonathan, it's my birthday. It's not my birthday yet when we're recording this, but for this episode, I'm the birthday boy, motherfucker.
It's November 23rd. It is the birthday of two people who are important to me, Doctor Who and Sean Chapman. Doctor Who is 59 today, and you, my friend, are 30.
Yes, as we're recording this, I'm not yet over the hill. I'm not like you. I'm not a decayed wreck of a human being, once full of youth and vigor, and now just empty. But I will be there by the time that this podcast releases. So, Jonathan, you had the idea that we would do, because, you know, this is a last moment where we will have, like, energy and vitality in our aging bodies, to do a birthday episode for the 30th birthday for each of us. For your episode, it all got kind of weird, and we ended up doing the top 10 controllers. The idea being that the person whose birthday it is gets to decide what the topic of the podcast is. And
the one that we were going to do for me might be out by the time this is out, so we'll see.
Who knows? You know, time is a weird thing. We are recording this for people on the night before Halloween. Because the topic I have in mind is one that we need to do some prep for, and I wanted to explain what it was, partially because depending on your answer to a question I'm going to ask you, we might have to do a backup topic, because I'm hoping that you don't know basically anything about the thing that I want to do for this episode of the podcast. So, Jonathan, here's a very important question. Do you know what VTubers are?
Okay, kind of. I've Googled this question. I've Googled what is a VTuber. Is it the thing where people get, like, art made of them and then, like, the lips flap and it's like they're talking like their art avatar?
This is exactly what I wanted to hear. You kind of know. Well, Jonathan, I've got really good news for you, because over the next several weeks, you're going to get to know what VTubers are, because I'm going to have you watch a bunch of VTuber stuff, and we're going to talk about it together. Because if you remember, Jonathan, when we were getting ready for the 10-year anniversary podcast for the Weekly Stuff podcast, we had the idea of doing 10 topics, recording an hour on each topic. We had a list of potential things to do. One of those potential topics that we ultimately didn't go with was for me to rant about a weird rabbit hole I had gone on that I had never talked about on the podcast, nor to you off the air, which is a thing I've done with stuff like Gundam. And we ultimately went with, I forget what else we did, but we went with a different topic instead of that. This is what that would have been. I have, for the past 2 years, gone down a weird YouTube rabbit hole with VTubers. VTubers are kind of what you were saying, Jonathan. They're virtual YouTubers. They are people who make online content, mostly doing live streams, where instead of it being like a webcam footage of them in their room or whatever, playing their video game, it is a model, either a 2D model or a 3D model, that tracks and animates based on the person's movement in real life. And they basically play a kind of character while they're doing whatever their online video content is. They're playing video games, they're chatting with their live chat, whatever it is. And it's this weird sort of one part video game live streaming, one part like improvisational theater. It's weirdly kind of like professional wrestling in some ways, with the sort of strange, is it a character? Is it just like sort of not a character? What are they doing? And it's a very fascinating world that, again, around the beginning of the pandemic, I started getting into. And I've wanted to bring it up on the podcast multiple times and have never found a scenario where it really made sense. And now I can just make you watch a bunch of VTuber stuff, and we get to do it for a podcast.
I don't know what to say.
Yes.
Genuinely, if you had put a gun to my head and the heads of all my family members and said, Jonathan, guess what Sean's birthday podcast topic is, guess until you're out of guesses, and then I kill your family, my family would be dead. I would never have gotten to VTubers. What the fuck?
I mean, it's a deep world. It's an involved world. I have put into our shared folder, and I've also put it in the chat so you can open it up. I have made a document with just a bunch of YouTube links, which is going to be your starting point, Jonathan.
Oh, no.
You don't not, I want to make it clear while you're looking at this document, I'm not saying you have to watch every single one of these links. But here's the idea that I have for this podcast. Jonathan, for the next 3 weeks, I want us to record an additional segment that will eventually edit all of them together into the episode that people will ultimately listen to. And so each segment will be maybe 30 minutes to an hour at most. And I want you to start going down the VTuber rabbit hole. And I want you can keep maybe a diary or whatever you need to do. Keep track of kind of generally what you're watching and where you're going. And I just want to chat about the wonderful, weird world of VTubers with you. And see your descent into... I want to poison your YouTube recommendations. Like, that's my idea. Like, I want to make it so that you just get recommended only VTuber clips so that eventually you're not going off of this document I've shared with you at all, and you're just adventuring this weird world all on your own.
I don't understand it. Will I understand it by the end of this?
It's not as complicated as all that. It is weird, but it is a wonderful world. I'll give you a little bit of context, and so that also, people can kind of learn what these VTubers are. This is my project also for the audience. When this episode gets to come out, they get to listen to it, and if they don't know what VTubers are, they can explore this as well. I'll say that generally with VTubers, and you'll see this with most of these clips, there are two very large groups of VTubers. Most of them are Japanese, but now these days we do have lots of English language VTubers as well, and there's lots of people who do subtitled clips and stuff like that as well. So some of this might be stuff you could watch honestly just in Japanese, because some of it's not that complicated. Some of it is stuff that you might want to seek out English language clips. But in general, you have two large groups of VTubers. One is called HoloLive, one is called Niji Sanji. The ones that I am particularly into are HoloLive, and so most of the ones that you're going to see on this document, like Korone, Sakura Miko, Fubuki, Subaru, all these ones, these are HoloLive ones. Then I have some non-HoloLive and Niji Sanji ones at the bottom. By HoloLive, basically what I mean is like HoloLive is a big company that hires people that are VTubers that manage their own YouTube channels, but there's lots of crossover and stuff like that. So there are lots of individual VTubers, but they also appear in each other's content, and they put on big shows and stuff like that where everyone gets together. And that is like the easiest way to step your toes into this weird world, is to start watching some of these clips I have, see which ones are ones that you kind of are interested in, and just kind of follow wherever your interest goes. And HoloLive is like a nice, comfortable place for you can kind of enter this wonderful weird world of VTubers.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll do it.
So do you have any questions for me before we let you go?
Oh, lots, but we'll save those for the segments, I guess.
Okay. So
what was your backup idea?
Make you fucking play Enter the Matrix, you motherfucker. I didn't want to waste that. I didn't want to waste that because it's the thing you should do anyways. It's like I shouldn't have to use up my fucking birthday wish on making you play fucking Enter the Matrix.
Well,
but
that was yeah,
that was what my backup was going to be. I also had an idea that was a dumb idea that I would think of like an awful, terrible movie and just make you watch the movie, and I don't watch the movie, and you just explain the movie to me. But I think that would be amusing for me, but actually make a terrible podcast. And so this is the idea I settled on.
Well, we'll see what kind of podcast this makes. So yeah, I guess this is the beginning of the VTuber Diaries. We'll see you in a little bit.
I'm very, very excited. Hello and welcome back. We are now in week 1 of Jonathan's VTuber adventures. We are recording this on November 6, 2022 at 3:32 p.m. Currently, it has been almost exactly 1 week, Jonathan, since I asked you the fateful question, do you know what VTubers are? And you weren't really able to give me an answer. So to start this conversation, I want to ask you that question again now that you've had a week on the internet. Jonathan, what are VTubers?
I don't know. I have less of an answer now than I did 1 week ago. They're dog girls who play games together. Dog girls, cat girls. I haven't seen any boy VTubers. Are there boy VTubers?
There are, yes. You can.
Okay.
The Hollow Stars is the male VTuber branch of Hololive. There are lots of male VTubers in Niji Sanji. There's a whole world of male VTubers out there if you want to go see them.
Okay. I have not gone back and listened to the intro you gave us, if you're listening to this podcast 5 minutes ago, because I felt like that would ruin the experiment. But Sean, I genuinely, now I feel like I have more questions. So basically what I've done is I've watched, I did not watch every clip on your list that you gave me, because you gave me
and I don't want you necessarily to feel pressured to watch every one of those. That's just you click on those and you see where those are breadcrumbs and you can go on those trails. That was not your homework that you have to watch all of them. Just be clear.
I basically stuck to the first page and a half of what you gave me and branched off from there just to give you a sense. So most of what I have seen, because the beginning of your cheat sheet was Korone videos, Inugami Korone.
Yes. I very intentionally put her at the top. That was on purpose.
And she's my favorite so far. She's great. Everything she does is funny. Very good. There are moments of hers that I realized have become memes that I did not know the origin of. Oh, I'm Die, Thank You Forever, which is when she and another VTuber are playing a game that I had not seen before. It's some kind of bomb defusing game.
Yeah, stop it, or keep talking, or explode, or something like that.
Yeah. Keep talking and try not to explode or something. And that's a one-liner that happens at the end of that one, and it's very funny. Korone is a dog girl. She's great. She does not speak good English, but she speaks English a lot, and it's very funny and cute. So I like Korone. Korone is great. I've seen all of the ones that you clipped here. And actually what's funny is I went back to look which ones did I miss from Sean's list? And they'd all showed up in my recommends anyway, and I'd seen them. So I've seen all of those. I have not seen, you gave me one long one of hers, the Mario Bros. One. I have not seen all of that one. That's an hour-long stream. And then I have seen some of the other ones. You gave me some of Sakura Miko, Shirakami Fubuki, Subaru, and then Smock, which is all of those together. And I've seen a little bit of those. I've seen the most, I think, of those ones of... I think it was Subaru. Yeah, because I wound up... She and another one were playing Pokemon a bunch. And I watched a bunch of their Pokemon videos because I found those very funny. And that's what I've seen. But like I said, I'm basically left with a lot of questions because I'm curious, now I'm at the level of okay, what are these things? What is the technology that enables the VTuber shit? Is it a camera is at them and then it's like a very, very simple mocapping thing? Where do they get the art? What is, I don't know. I guess I should preface this also with, I just don't have a lot of experience with streaming in general. I do not watch video game Let's Plays. I do not watch Twitch streams. I just don't engage with this stuff. And that's not me making a value judgment on any of that stuff. I have no problem with any of that stuff. And I know there's lots of wonderful people who do it. I know there's shitheads who do it too. But overall, it seems like there's lots of cool communities that come out of that. And I love that. It's just not my scene. And that's fine. But so there's multiple levels of this is very alien to me. But I will say, when it is a funny little dog girl trying her best to speak English to her audience for an hour while playing Mario, it is more entertaining than any other stream I've ever seen. Yes.
I think you're probably about where I was about a week into when I got into VTuber stuff, or the modern VTuber stuff. So I guess because I do want to talk a little bit about, because I didn't do it much on the first part of the episode because I just wanted to get into the topic and let you loose. But I'll talk a little bit about maybe more of the history of VTubers and some of that tech stuff to kind of give you a little perspective, and then we can go into some of the clips that you watched and some of your favorites and stuff. And kind of how I want to talk a little bit about how I got into it, just to give context to this weird journey we're on now together. So VTubing, I actually did watch some of like the really, really early VTuber stuff more as like out of curiosity, because it goes back to 2016, is the earliest stuff, which is Kizuna Ai, who is now a defunct VTuber, but she was for the longest time by far the most famous. That was like a company, like a tech company made this character, had a voice actress, like a professional voice actress that then eventually people figured out who it was. Her identity was not known for a while until people kind of did some sleuthing and like watched some clips and compared the voice. But so that was more of a like designed thing of, we have created a character, we've like invented this technology. Kizuna Ai was a full 3D character that existed in a 3D space with like a mocap studio, and they did like recorded like scripted videos and stuff like that with this character on YouTube. And some of that stuff is like, okay. I think the big thing that went viral with her was Resident Evil 7, because she would, every time she played with the English voices, and every time a character said fuck you, which happens more in Resident Evil 7 than you would realize, when every time the character says fuck you, Kizuna Ai has like an adorable Japanese girl voice, just goes, fuck you! And you just get that over and over again, and it's great. So that went a little bit viral. I think that's around the time I caught some of that stuff. And then I fell off of it for like 3 years. And in those 3 years, it changed a lot from being this very exclusive little scene that was mostly like edited videos and stuff in 3D characters to being, by 2019, Hololive was big, Niji Sanji was big, and that was more a collection of, here are people who, in other identities online, had been doing streaming and stuff like that forever. They then joined this company, they worked with artists to get like a character model made, and then use a technology that is called Live 2D. That is a technology that is used that can morph 2D images to animate 2D, like, you know, basic 2D images between different expressions and stuff like that in very simple ways. Like, you've seen like kind of how limited the movement broadly is, but it's a 2D image that is moving for most of those. They do, a lot of the Hololive girls do now have 3D models as well. But they typically stick with the 2D stuff, and it's very simple tracking that is done with like a camera. They have a thing that you will probably end up stumbling on clips eventually where they accidentally show the interface on the screen sometimes, that has like buttons that they click that change the expressions. So there's like a whole kind of like tech thing of, oh, it kind of animates a little bit, tracking them. They can change the expression or add props and stuff on the fly using like their streaming setup. But it is generally like the VTuber scene by 2019 moved into, here's live 2D stuff, and it is now live streaming mostly video games. And I was like you, Jonathan, I did not like watching streaming at all until I stumbled onto VTubers. And I think the VTuber thing for me solves part of the thing I didn't like about streaming, which is it makes the artificiality of it like literal. Like it creates this sort of space where I understand that you are playing a character. So like when Subaru reacts in a very extreme way to something she's playing, it doesn't feel fakey to me. It feels like we are like engaged in this like collaborative act where it's like, I understand that you are not just being a normal person, you are playing this character of Ozora Subaru. And so that like artificiality becomes a part of the whole experience. And that's a thing that I like. And I also like that it feels less voyeuristic. There's something about the idea of watching someone with a webcam play a video game for like a 3-hour-long live stream or something, uncomfortable to me. It's like, I don't want to see and look into someone's life in their room in that for like huge periods of time. There's something about the anonymity of it that also, I think, for me, fixes some of the discomfort I had with the live streaming format, and it makes it more kind of fun and collaborative and creative. And I fell into VTubing around the beginning of the pandemic in 2019, mostly because a lot of the other online content that I had watched, like Rooster Teeth stuff and Giant Bomb stuff, suffered a lot during the pandemic. Some of that because of stuff unrelated to the pandemic, like
for some very different reasons.
Yeah, some very different reasons in the case of Achievement Hunter, in particular. And then Giant Bomb is just like they suffered from, you know, these were like groups that made content in a studio together. Now they're having to make content at home. Right. It just didn't work that well. Versus VTubers are always making their content at their homes. You know, it's like they were already experts at that kind of content. And so that just happened to be around the time that Kodane in particular went viral, with like the Ikum Bokum clip from Banjo and Kazooie went really viral.
I did see that.
That's the one I think I first saw, and then I watched some of the Kodane stuff, and then slowly got into the Hololive world, and that has kind of become like a big part of the online content I consume that has replaced what I would used to watch, like a Let's Play video or something. Now I'll either watch clips of VTuber streams, or I'll usually have like, right now I'm watching Subaru did a big playthrough of Persona 4 The Golden that just wrapped up recently, and I've been watching those videos in like chunks for like a couple of months really at this point. And I'll just like pick those up every once in a while, have it on in the background while I'm grading. And that's kind of like my VTuber experience. Like my YouTube feed is now like my subscription algorithm, all that shit. It's all VTuber shit all the way down. It's impossible to escape that swamp once you have stumbled into it. I don't see swamp as a negative term. That's just, it's just, you can't escape. Your feet are stuck, and this is where I am, and I'm just going to hang out here.
This is definitely not a negative swamp. This is not, didn't go down you're not watching Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro.
No, exactly. This is a very fun space to be in, but it is also a space that I think once you get deep enough in, it is now impossible to escape. But I'm very happy here watching VTuber stuff.
So I think your explanation there of like the different sort of kind of voyeurism, like that makes a lot of sense to me. And that definitely, because I don't think I could have verbalized it yet. And obviously this has been a couple of days for me. You've been watching this stuff for a long time. But that makes sense to me because I think I was feeling something similar of like, boy, I'm laughing at this and like finding it funny a lot. Like initially it's fucking weird. Like, just to be honest, it is someone playing a like girl with, anime dog ears, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's fucking weird. But I think you get into it a little more. I'm like, but I'm laughing at this and finding it much funnier and more entertaining than I think I would a typical game stream. And it's like bringing the artifice up fixes a couple of problems. And you talked about it, which is that all streamers are having to play a character on some level because anyone in any form of media is having to play a character on some level. The Sean and Jonathan that you get on our podcast, I think is a pretty true version of us, but it's a pretty true version of like a part of us. There are parts of us we don't share with you, and we're on in a certain way. Like, I don't know, if one of us is in a really shitty mood or something, we're probably just not going to do a podcast that day, right? Mm-hmm. There's those sorts of things. And of course, if you are doing an actual stream where, like, this is the thing that I always find when I'm watching streams that kind of it bums me out, even if the person seems like they're having a good time and is doing a good job. There's something about the level of effortfulness of, like, having to engage with chat, but it's a very one-way engagement because you're the only one talking. Everyone else is coming in text. You're having to monitor that. You're having to not every streamer plays games, but like maybe you're playing a game also. And then there's that level of it. And there's like, you're on the entire time. And then there's income tied to it. So you're also like having to like, maybe people are doing donation. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. If someone's doing a stream and you're enjoying it and you want to give them $5, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But like the other side of that sometimes is also like, maybe it's a stream where it happens to be the personality doing this is a pretty woman, and so there's a lot of simps who are sending money because they're simps, and you'll get this, and then that makes me sad in weird ways. And it's just like there's a million like levels of effortfulness and labor to it that like I think the people who are good at it, it takes an awful lot of skill, and I'm impressed by it. But it also kind of depresses me because I'm like, boy, that seems like a path that would burn you the fuck out so fast. And then I think you look at the VTuber stuff, and obviously there's a lot of skill and talent involved in that too, but I do think bringing up the artifice a little bit and it not being like, okay, this isn't the person's real name, I assume, on any of these, right?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there are, like, some indie VTubers will be less protective of the anonymity and stuff like that, but certainly Hololive, I mean, again, lots of these people have had other online identities, so like for a lot of them you could find out if you really wanted to, but it is like a faux pas in the VTuber world to like reveal someone's real name, and so like again, you could if you wanted for the very famous ones. For most of them it is out there, information is out there, but in general that is a thing that you kind of ignore, and sort of it's just like, I don't care, like I don't want to know what Inugami Kodane's like the performer or the person that is Kodane. I don't want to know what she looks like. I don't want to know her real name. Like, that's not part of it, right? It's like, I want to respect the anonymity because I think that is part of like the contract or something you implicitly sign in engaging with this material.
Right, exactly. And so that's the thing. It becomes, there's something about it that feels more wholesome to me, I guess, because like it's I think like the terms of like the exchange are much clearer. Like I think you and I, being mature adults, understand the like character thing in a stream, right? But not everyone is going to, especially when you're aiming at a younger audience. There are all kinds of mixed signals that can come. Like me talking about like, you know, the simps on streams. Like, you know, in a lot of cases that can be the woman streaming is doing absolutely nothing to invite that, right? But we'll get it anyway. And, you know, I'm sure someone's sexualizing the weird dog girl, but that feels like that's a much harder thing to, like, it just feels like if you were doing tips on this kind of stream or something, the idea of someone expecting sexual favor out of it would be different. I don't know. There's like a lot of like social dimensions to it that it kind of flattens and changes. So like sociologically, I'm very fascinated by this. Like I'm already thinking about like, does this deserve a place in my dissertation? Because, which is already making me laugh. If you get me to include a fucking VTuber part in my dissertation because of this, Jesus Christ. But no, like I have a chapter that's going to be about anime and video games, and then I see this and I'm like, well, how can I not? If I'm starting to watch it and I have fountain of VTuber knowledge Sean Chapman over here to consult with, like, it feels relevant because there's something sociologically very fascinating with anime culture interfacing with reality in this way, you know? It's fascinating.
Yeah, because it is like, you know, because it's all styled around anime, you know, so you can find all other style VTubers, but it's much harder. They're very rare that are outside of these sort of like manga anime aesthetic. Because, yeah, I think part of the appeal is that it has the appeal factor of animation there with the character, right? And so it is capitalizing on some of the things that make anime characters appealing and using that to sort of adapt the streaming format to the anime aesthetic and the anime world. So I do think it would have a place in your dissertation. I just would love to read how you explain that to an academic audience, what the fuck VTubers are. That would be the most insane paragraph to try to write in the world.
Sean, I had a paragraph I was writing recently where I was just trying to explain the plot of Dragon Ball in 2 sentences, and that alone was a challenge. Yeah, now that you're saying it, I kind of want to take the challenge on just because it would be fucking funny to me. Like, that's always the challenge for me. How could I academically explain that in a way that preserves the fun of it in some sense, right? Because we're getting into the weeds here. What's actually appealing about this is that Korone is just very funny. She has, like, a very good comedy voice, and there's a sense of comedic timing, and you get the sense all these people are, like, again, it's play. It's play in the most literal sense. It is play in almost this is where I'm getting academic again, but it's play in an almost childlike sense of creating a character and inventing that character and playing with your friends who are also characters, and in this case, engaging with a video game, which is also a form of play, which I also like because, like, you know, the whole Let's Play genre is that, you know, if you think of, like, Achievement Hunter, who are some of the early, like, Let's Players, you know, Michael being really angry and Gavin being really stupid are also characters. They're not like that in real life. But then you take that up a notch where you're literally playing with your dog girl anime avatar. And I think the level of like play to it and what that invites is also interesting and different.
Yeah. And it's the way that like the technology gets to be used in that play. You know, like you watch the clip that I think I had this on the page that was Konami playing Assassin's Creed and she's stuck in the sad face or whatever, and she sees a comment that says like sad dog, and it's like sad dog, no sad, happy face, and she switches to the happy face. It's like angry, happy. That, like, you know, the ways that gets like pulled in and the weird things with the technology, like Hololive recently updated their stuff where their streamers can pin like images and stuff to their avatars so it can like move with them, and some of them have like done a lot of weird crazy stuff like that. There's a whole weird world of like memes and like technology and jokes and in-jokes that get played off of because of like the specific format that VTubing like enables, that I find very fascinating, because it's this whole own culture that is developed in this weird niche within a niche of like the streaming world, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. Explain to me what HoloLive is again, because I keep seeing the term and I don't understand.
Okay, so there are two big companies in Japanese VTubing, but they have now actually expanded into outside of just Japanese, but they're Japanese-based companies that have some overseas streamers. I've just used the term overseas in this very VTuber way. It's like, cause it's Kai Guy. But you have one company is Niji Sanji, which they are very, very big in terms of the number of streamers, but they are less kind of connected together. And then you have another company called Cover, and Cover manages HoloLive. HoloLive is the group of streamers that Korone is a part of, Fubuki, like most of the ones that or almost all the ones you've watched. So they're all part of the same group.
In streaming in America, I feel like all the big ones are independent. There's not like a company that like runs the streamers. So that's what my confusion was. Yeah.
So Cover is the company, you know, and so you'll get, I don't know if you've seen any clips where they talk about Yago, Yagoo. If you haven't, you will eventually stumble on clips where they talk about Yago. He is the CEO of HoloLive. His name isn't actually Yago. His name is Tanigo, but on a stream way back in the day, Subaru couldn't read the kanji of his name and pronounced the name as Yago, and it has stuck, and it is the best in-joke in the world. like this 40-year-old Japanese man who runs this like weird tech startup company. He loves it, but he's now known forever as Yago because Subaru couldn't read the kanji's name because she's terrible at reading kanji. But anyways, there's a whole kind of family of streamers that are in HoloLive, and HoloLive is interesting because it is a loosely modeled off of like the idol industry kind of format. So they like come out in generations. So like Korone is a bad example because she's part of what they called HoloLive gamers when the generation thing wasn't as well defined. But Subaru is a second generation HoloLive streamer. And they're on generation 6. And now they have like an EN branch, and so you've got like EN generations and stuff like that. But so they bring in waves of these streamers, and they have like auditions, so people audition to play a HoloLive character, I guess you would say, right? And so it's one of the other things I like about VTubing in that sense, for the non-indie VTubers, is that, not to say that there's not going to be burnout and that kind of stuff, because there definitely still is, but there is a like way for these people to make alternate forms of income through merchandising and stuff. They have protections in place because they're employees of a company. Like, again, not to say that there aren't problems with burnout or there's not like issues there, but it takes off some of the sting of the like, I am watching a person that will starve if they are not playing fucking Fallout New Vegas for 12 hours a day, you know?
So there's like a regular paycheck.
Yes.
Whatever the Japanese equivalent of benefits is. Obviously healthcare works differently if you're outside the stupid United States, but yeah, okay, that's good to know. I would, because if American streamers I liked were just like getting a paycheck for doing the streamings and didn't need us to be watching them for 12 hours a day, that would feel, maybe I would watch streaming more because I would feel less like I was exploiting these people.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the HoloLive streamers, because they come out of that like old streaming culture with like other like iterations of themselves or whatever. I don't know how you describe that. A lot of them, I think, for a long time were doing way too much streaming and stuff and kind of like breaking themselves on it. But over the past year or so, it feels like a lot of them have come around to realizing, you don't have to live that life if you're a part of this company because you've got all this other stuff you can do. And they put out like albums and stuff. I mean, it is inevitable that we will get like a big opening theme to an anime will come from a VTuber, like probably the Hoshimashi Suisei, who is a HoloLive tuber, that she does a lot of really great music. Like, there's a whole other dimension to HoloLive because it's got this corporation that backs them, and they have that quality as well that they can engage with. That is nice.
This is fascinating to me because I would not necessarily have intuited this just from the clips I saw, because I think they do a good job at making it feel like a very kind of like homespun operation. You know, someone in their room with their silly VTuber, but it sounds like there's more of an architecture around it, which is interesting. But yeah. Okay, that's it. What are the general ages of the people? Do we know that?
You can take guesses. I mean, I would guess most of them are in their 20s.
Yeah.
Some of them are maybe in their like early 30s. There's some like, I don't know if you've seen any clips of Hosho Marin, who is a Hololive VTuber, but there are lots of jokes about she's clearly older because she makes references to like much like older culture and stuff.
That's great.
But she tries to play it up like, no, I'm just 17, all forever 17, and then she'll make a reference to like, an early 90s anime that nobody would ever fucking know about. So everyone knows that. Because she also, she will talk about how she worked as like an office lady for years. So it's like obviously like the person like has to be in at least their 30s, or you would never have been able to live this life. That's part of the fun of it, is having that like mystique, that you get to sort of intuit it a little bit, but it's fun that you don't know for sure, and you get to kind of play with that as well.
Well, that's the other thing that I feel like in the personalities I do follow, which tend to be more on like the, I don't know, like ASMR and like news side of YouTube and stuff like that, or video essayists and stuff, your life just becomes so much of the content, Like, even if you don't want it to be, it just inevitably does, because it's your face, it's your name and all of that. And I feel like I like that whole idea. There's something to me very inspiring that you could be an office lady for a bunch of years and then go become a VTuber. That actually is like an awesome path in life. I find there's like hope for me.
Yes.
I could do something other than what I'm doing now. It's Sean and Jonathan's VTuber Adventures starting 2023. That's really fascinating. So Korone, whatever she probably does not go to the bank and talk like this, is my guess.
No, I think a big mystery around Korone is that like a legitimate accent that she has? Because she speaks in like a dialect, like clearly, right. And it's like how much of that is part of the act is a thing I think that like nobody knows for sure. Because I think that she definitely has like at least like a natural dialect that she speaks that has like a bit of an accent in it, in the form that accents take in Japanese. But I think she plays it up a bit. But like it's part of the appeal of the characters. She's got like these weird ways that she speaks. Like she has a hard time with the R sounds, right? So oftentimes if she says Korone, it comes about more as like Kone, and it's like more of Koone. Right. And that's again, it's something where it's like, I don't really want to know. Like, I don't actually care if it's something that like that person has sort of figured out. Oh, this is like a fun way to kind of build this character, is to have this kind of accent to the character. Because the accent has clearly become like more or less thick over time if you watch different clips over the years. Maybe that's a performance thing, or maybe that is just like naturally people like speak slightly differently. But it does not matter to me either way. It's very funny. That's very funny. What's important.
I also this feels like less of an act because it's just so like raw. But anytime she speaks in English, and she does whole streams. Yes. In English where she forces herself to do it, even though it seems like she has like no formal English training. And
or very little.
Very little. This is what I did watch one where she was playing with like English language stream. Yeah, that's the bomb diffusing one. Yeah, where they're trying to communicate between each other, and that one is fucking hilarious. There's, I guess the other streamer's named Calliope, but there's this part where there's the buttons on the thing that are like different shapes, and Korone is trying to explain one. It's like, this is Hairu, but with an extra, and that means that's the kanji for like enter, and she's like, and it's got an extra line, and kind of like, okay, and you can tell she has no idea what that means, which is just hilarious, because it's like, of course that makes sense as like a frame of reference, but it's the whole thing. God, it's very funny. She has the whole Mario stream where she's trying to do that, and and that feels very raw to me, because when I was in Japan and like talking with like Thomas's Japanese friends who didn't speak a lot of English, it's like a lot of the like mannerisms she has to trying to put English together remind me a lot of like those interactions I would have. So it's very funny, but it's like a good funny. We're all laughing together. I don't think the point of the joke is, haha, she's bad at English. Yeah. It's like, this is fun. Yeah.
Well, because specifically, those Mario streams, because that was one of the ones I linked for you, because that's one of my favorite streams of any VTuber stream I've seen. Is she did 2 of them where she played through, and she beat it eventually, Super Mario Brothers 1. And the thing is, she has to speak in English, and if she says anything in Japanese, she has to end the stream. That's why it's 2 videos, because one of the times she actually said a Japanese word, and she's like, oh, and the stream just ends. Then like a week later, she started up again, and it's like, you gotta speak only in English. And yeah, like those are some of the fun ones. Is the English only streams, or seeing them try to, particularly it's when, now that there are English language VTubers that are much more prominent, which that only started happening a little bit after I started watching. The first generation of Hololive English VTubers was like a few months after I started getting into this stuff. But now they're like more fully integrated. So you have some of those collaborations like with Callie in Korone playing the bomb game, where you get to see the kind of like cross-cultural communication and stuff like that is very endearing and also very funny, especially if like us, like you can speak Japanese or have a strong familiarity with Japanese. Like that is one of the other things I love about VTubers, is because you get that exposure to that cultural stuff that is very hard to get access to if you can't go to Japan.
Right.
And so for me, as someone who likes the language and likes the culture, it's fun to be able to get to see more of that kind of element of the language. Get to it makes you feel so much better about it being hard to read Japanese when you watch fluent Japanese speakers play like a JRPG and they misread a kanji, and I look at it like, that's not how you read that, because they just like went through it too fast. They're thinking about something else and they like misspoke, and then the chat's like, telling them it's like, no, it's read this way. And so it's like you get that kind of more casual Japanese stuff that is just so hard to get if you can't actually go to the country. And then you also get one of my favorite things, which is watching Japanese people play American video games. That is one of my favorite things to watch. Korone just finished one where she played through fucking Destroy All Humans on the PS2. I do not know how she found out that fucking game exists, but she played through that whole game with the Japanese dub, and it is fucking fascinating to see how they tried to translate the jokes and like make equivalent references to Japanese pop culture with all the dumb American pop culture jokes and Destroy All Humans. That's shit that you would never ever be able to see if it weren't for these kinds of streams, because who's going to be able to find video of the Japanese version of fucking the THQ game Destroy All Humans from 2005 on the fucking PS2?
That's great. The one I saw, this was not on your list, I found this on my own, was Korone playing Doom from 2016.
Yes.
I didn't watch all of it yet. That's one I want to go back to, because it was a long series of highlights. But just the beginning of it, of her waking up and then seeing the suit, she gets really excited at the Doom guy's suit. Like, I get to wear this. It was very funny. I loved all of that. Because, it's just, there's something about little anime dog girl playing Doom, which I think is the most American video game you can possibly imagine, is like Doom 2016. That's very funny to me.
Yeah, that's a classic one, is her playing Doom for sure. When she gets the chainsaw is like one of those big clips that went viral.
Oh, okay. Another thing is, so I talked to you about Subaru and Okayu playing Pokemon games together.
Yes.
And I like those streams a lot. That's fun because, I mean, I'm very familiar with Pokemon. I've played all the games, but I play them in English, and in Japanese, they're mostly the same, but they do have the Japanese text, and then you realize, oh, right, every Pokemon's name is different. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, especially for the newer Pokemon, I do not know their Japanese names, right? Because they're often completely different. And what was fun for me in those was watching it and trying to figure out, is this the actual Japanese name of this Pokemon, or is this the nickname they have given this Pokemon?
Yes.
And I have no idea. They had a Ponyta that they had named Pony Pony, and I don't know if Ponyta is Pony Pony in Japanese or if that was the nickname. It could be either one, and I haven't looked it up because I want to live in just the lack of knowledge of that. I want to live in ignorance. Is it just Pony Pony? I want that to be the possibility.
Yeah, I don't know about the Ponyta one, but I do know, the great hero and legend of our times is Subaru's Bidoof named Justin, because I forget, it's like Beepa or something, I think, is the Japanese name of that Pokemon, and so she made a Justin Bieber joke and named it Justin, and then I think I gave you the clip where she reacts to it evolving, or just like, oh, please be cute, and then she sees the, like, weird, dumb monstrosity that Bidoof evolves in, she's like, oh,
that is a great clip. That is one. It was on your list, but I actually found it separately, like in recommends, and I got to that, and it was because it's like she's like mildly disappointed, and then everyone starts calling her on it, and she's trying to like be like, no, it's fine, it's fine, yes. But just can't.
Oh, yeah. Poor Justin.
The other one was Empoleon, which is the Emperor Penguin Pokemon. It's the Piplup evolution. They had named Ace, like Aisu. And I have no idea. Is that its name? Is it just Ace? I would love the idea of a big fucking penguin Pokemon named Ace. That's great. But yeah, I want to live in blissful ignorance.
Yes, those Pokemon streams were great because that was. So I'll just say I'm going to put my cards on my table, not to like influence you in any way, Jonathan, because I want you to take your own path. But I have very much settled on, for me, Subaru is my favorite VTuber. Like I just love her stuff to death. I think she's so funny, in particular because she is like not an otaku by background. Like if you. I don't think I put one of these clips in, but it would be worth. Maybe we should find it and put it in that document where she details how she ended up in the VTuber life, because it's like her fucking house burned down. And
Give me this. I want to see this. Yeah,
and she like was way into this because it was like when that grandma was playing Skyrim videos were going viral, and she saw that. And that's what inspired her to do like online media content. And she's like, was into some nerdy stuff, but she's not like a hardcore fucking otaku like all of the other streamers are. And so that whole world, like she was like casually into Pokemon. So one of the reasons why you get that like Bidoof clip is because she's never seen the evolution of Bidoof, even though that was one of the remakes of one of the games. So it's like that Pokemon has been around for fucking like 10 years or something.
Yeah.
So you get these very fresh reactions from her because she's just not actually that deep into that world. But yeah, anyways, back to what I was originally going to say. So Subaru is like one of my favorites, or is my favorite at this point. It's definitely one I've seen the most like full streams of. And she did streams of Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami, although she did it Kiwami and then played 0. And she completely fell in love with the character Nishikiyama, or Nishiki, from Yakuza, who has a carp tattoo on his back. So when she got Magikarp, she named Magikarp Nishiki, and it was like the most emotional moment when Nishiki finally evolves into fucking Gyarados, and it's like, yes, Nishiki, because that is a very tragic character, not to spoil anything for Yakuza, but Nishiki doesn't end up in a good place. So it's like, Nishiki, in at least this world, you like actually got to evolve into a dragon, because that's the whole myth of like the carp becoming a dragon that Gyarados is actually a reference to. It's like, it was like a weirdly emotional moment as someone who likes Yakuza and followed Subaru on that journey on some of those streams.
This is another Pokemon I had the question about, because there's a video, it was a clip I saw of Subaru playing with Okayu, and she gets her entire team destroyed by a Magnemite because she has all water Pokemon.
Yes.
And one of them, I think there was like an electric metal Pokemon, I forget its name, that she had that she thought would beat Magnemite, but it was actually weak to it because she didn't know the whole backstory. And then she's like getting them all, but one of them was Gyarados, was Nishiki, and I'm like, is that its actual? I'm curious, is that its actual name? But now that I know that whole backstory, that's fucking hilarious and amazing. I thought you were going to say for a second that she got a carp tattooed on her back, and that would be very funny, but that would be outside of the VTuber space.
Yes, that would be. Maybe she did, and we just don't know. That
Totally
would be very
possible.
extreme, but
yeah, no, it's great. There's another video where Subaru leaves Okayu's stream after getting beat and like forgets to mute, and it's just bitching about Okayu.
Yes.
It's very funny, and then comes back, and then they cut over to her stream because it's like a highlights video. Anyway, no, their stuff was very good. I want to see more of their Pokemon stuff.
yeah, their Pokemon. Yeah, because they did the thing where like they both started playing at the same time to see how far
Right.
they could get and like what Pokemon they could capture, and then would battle each other. It's
Yeah.
like that. Those are really good because that's like a very creative setup. For
They also start to
streams.
play up this like rivalry where Subaru is really nice to her Pokemon and Okayu is like a taskmaster, and there's this whole joke about Okayu going like, Pokemon are meat shields. I can use them as meat shields. I think they literally use the term Niku something, like it's in Japanese. It's very funny. And then Subaru is like horrified by this. I like it. It's very funny.
Yeah, well, I think Okayu trades a Pokemon with Subaru and just says, like, yeah, he's never breathed air outside
Yes.
the box before, basically.
Yes, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, that's that video. No, I mean, it is, I think, referenced this in the first part of this podcast, of that there is, like, probably the best, like, comparison is something like WWE. Of, like, it's a company and there's characters, and obviously these people put their individuality into it, but there is a larger, like, sense of, like, the characters that they're building and setting up fun interactions with them. And, you know, of course, I'm not into WWE, but when I see clips and stuff, I understand why some people love it to death, because, you know, and it's the exact same reasons with some of this other stuff we talked about, of, like, heightening the artificiality is actually the fun of it.
Yeah, because you have the whole concept of wrestling called kayfabe, which is like that, like, you know, everybody understands effectively that Dwayne The Rock Johnson when he was a wrestler. The Rock was a character that Dwayne Johnson played, but you never acknowledge that directly. Like that's part of being kayfabe, is like you never like break that rule. Like you never break the character. That's like you create that character and you live that character and you act as though this is like a real living person. And there's something about that quality to VTubing that I also love. Yeah, that it's like everybody understands, particularly here because it's so artificial. You know, obviously you know that this weird 2D animated image on a screen is not a sentient, independent entity. You know that it's a human being controlling all this stuff.
Yeah.
But you get to play into the fantasy and the creative aspect of it as this weird sort of improv theater thing, like what professional wrestling is.
Well, and it makes sense. You talked about, you know, maybe VTubers, not maybe, probably pretty soon, will have theme songs in anime or something. You know, WWE has now produced at least a couple of the biggest movie stars on the planet, between Dwayne The Rock Johnson and John Cena and others. You know, that we're getting more all the time, and I feel like we probably will get more and more. So it makes sense in that it kind of to analogize that here.
Yeah. So what are some of the other videos and stuff that you've seen? Any other highlights you want to talk about?
I'm going to go through some of it. This one I saw just before we started recording, and I don't even know who the VTubers are, but it was two of them singing the Backstreet Boys, Backstreet's Back, together. And it made me laugh riotously because they're doing it in their semi-broken English, and it's great.
Very good.
I don't know what that one was. I'm looking at it. It was just random in my recommends and watched it, right? So there was that. We talked about all the Pokemon videos. I really enjoyed those. There was one where I don't even remember who this was. It's on your. I think you linked it to me, but it was someone. It was Subaru trying ASMR.
Yes, that is a classic because that's actually, they made an animated short that is, because all the audio from that is pulled from an actual old ASMR stream she did, and then they animated a video around it, so it's like a more 3D character and stuff doing it, but it's audio from her legendary original ASMR stream.
I need to find that whole thing because it's incredible, because it's a terrible ASMR stream, because she can't stay quiet. Her whispering is off. It's like a kind of aggressive whispering. It's not what you would actually want. ASMR. Right, exactly. And then she just goes crazy because she keeps getting upset at things. But yeah, legendary. I understand why. I talked about a bunch of my favorite Korone ones that I loved. I did the Assassin's Creed video was fucking great, and the part in the Assassin's Creed video I loved was this part where she's like crawling in the grass, where she says, "I am the grass. I came to see you. Thanks for all the water, bitch." She kills the guy. That one's great. I think my single favorite video I've seen so far is one where Korone, on the fly, writes a rap while she's being watched by Calliope, and then performs the rap, and as she's performing it, realizing that she wants to add more yas into it, and then goes and puts them in there. And it's actually like a pretty good rap with like fun internal rhyme schemes. It's actually pretty great.
Yeah, because Callie is, like, in real life, she was, like, into the underground rap scene. And, like, she's an American person who went to Japan, got into the actual underground rap scene in Japan, and now she is a Hololive streamer who has put out, like, albums and stuff. I forget which label she's a part of, but she is actually part of, like, a major label now. But she's, like, you know, she is an actual rap artist, and her music is really good if you want to look up some of Calliope Mori's music. It's quite good. But yes, like, any of those interactions between her that, like, involves the rap stuff, those are some good streams.
I'm Googling it right now to save that for later because that sounds fun. But no, that was very good. There's a short clip I found of Korone where she's playing a fishing game. And I've seen a bunch of clips from her. Yeah. But anyway, she keeps saying cucumber, but she's saying like cucumber, like you would kind of say it like in Japanese. Yeah. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, says cucumber, like in perfect English. And it is... Like, it's the title of the video, and I still did a double take when it happened. It's great.
That one's really good, yeah. Because she just did that recently, where it's like a fucking... It's crazy. It's like a 12-hour stream of this fucking N64 fishing game.
Because I've seen a bunch of clips from it, so she must have, like, done it for a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this huge stream. I don't think anyone has any idea why she did such a long stream of such a nothing video game, but it's one of the things where she's so funny that she just sort of vibes off of the game. And yeah, like a lot of really great, I didn't watch much of the actual stream, but a lot of really great clips came out of it, because it's just sometimes you need, the streamers are so funny, they just need something mild for them to occupy a little bit of time, and then to just riff off of it, and that's a really good example of those kinds of videos.
Yeah. So anyway, those are some of my favorites so far. I will say I'm glad we had this check-in here to talk about it, because I feel like I have more direction for the weeks ahead with my VTuber homework.
Yes, because there's so many different places you could go. Because there's I had a really hard time putting together the clips list, because I realized very quickly, there's too many stuff. There are too many streamers, and I didn't want to, load up, here's every single big streamer on here. And, there's really big ones, there's a bunny girl named Pekora, Usada Pekora, who's a part of Hololive. That's one of their most famous streamers that I just didn't find time to put clips on and stuff. So it's it's a very, very big world. That is not necessarily all represented by those links on that page. But I'm glad that, you already found, what you did, particularly with the Pokemon thing, is exactly what I wanted, which is I gave you a couple of links, and then you just found your way through your own interest into a bunch of clips from those streams. Because I think I gave you one or two that had Super Dude playing Pokemon. And that's what I want you to continue to do, is just flourish off in your own directions, find your own path through the VTuber stuff. And then next week, for listeners, you'll just have it as the next part of this podcast. But for us, in a week, we'll get to sit back down, revisit, see what you've found, what you've discovered, what you've learned about VTubers, about the world, and maybe also, Jonathan, what maybe you've learned about yourself. We are back, Jonathan, for week 2 of Jonathan's VTuber adventures. It is currently November 13th at 4:09 p.m. So it has now been 2 weeks, 14 days since you first started taking your journey and watching VTuber videos. And what have you learned in the time since the last time we talked about this, Jonathan?
I feel like you should be calling this Jonathan's VTuber conversion therapy. You're just trying to turn me into a VTuber fan, or being jumped into the world of VTubers, as it were. One note, if you're hearing a crunching sound, that is my dog Phoebe, who has been very patient as we're recording a bunch of podcasts. So she's a good dog and got a biscuit, and she's eating the biscuit. She's had to watch a lot of these VTuber videos with me, and I'm always slightly worried, because let's just say there's a tendency for VTuber girls to have high-pitched voices that might irritate my dog if they're laughing and yelling loud enough.
Yes.
So, no, what have I learned? I don't know. So I did watch most of what you had added to the Google Doc, because you gave me a little bit more of homework, of suggestions of where to go, and I looked at some of that. And some of it, I didn't watch necessarily all of it. Stuff that didn't immediately grip me, I didn't do a ton of. I want to watch more of this male VTuber you gave me a bit of, Yokoku Roboru.
Yeah.
I didn't watch a ton of his. But I did follow the rabbit hole on ones I was being entertained by. So I've watched a lot more Korone. YouTube now very much knows I like Korone, and I get a whole lot of Korone clips, and I have many in here. I've also learned that people sometimes just make very creative Korone clips, where they'll just have a clip and then a fucking title that is funny, and then that is the joke. There is this video I found called "Devastating Words to Hear from the Girl You Like," and it is Korone talking about she's playing the fishing game. This fishing stream must have merited a lot of videos, and just saying, oh, this is small. This is just too small. And it's it's only funny because of the fucking title the person gave it, because she's not thinking about the double entendre at all. But at one point she's like, it's not big enough. And she's like, I'm sorry if this is mean, little fish. I'm just dying laughing because of the suggestive name. I watched more of what are they? Smock, the four together is I like that. I like them in a group a lot. I definitely like Subaru a lot. I know she's your favorite, and I have enjoyed her a whole lot. This morning I got really into Pikami, who is one of the VOMs, I guess. You'll have to explain
Yes.
to me the difference there. But she's one of the more like 2D VTubers, doesn't have a 3D model, and speaks mostly in English. And I wound up watching a bunch of those because I found that very funny. But yeah, I don't know. What did I learn? I don't know. I laughed a lot.
Well, that's good. That's what
Okay.
I want. Yeah. So it's interesting because I always thought that Pikami would probably be one that you liked. So to answer the question of like the VOMs project, so Pikami is not a Hololive YouTuber. She is a much smaller group called VOMs that has gone through some changes because he had 3 members originally, which was Pikami, Tomoshika, who's still there. She's like the red-haired one. And then Monoe was an old one that was there. She's on like, I don't know if she's on any of the videos I linked to or not. She had like black hair. She eventually graduated, and then they have 2 new ones that I haven't seen much of because they've only been around for like 6 months or something. But it's a much smaller group. They're called VOMs. I forget like the name of. There's like an artist in Japan who's fairly well known, who he did all the designs, and he's somewhat involved in the project. But yeah, so it is like a much smaller side group of VTubers, and Pikami is interesting because the actual person in real life who plays Pikami or whatever is part American, part Japanese, and so she like natively speaks Japanese. Like Japanese is her better of the 2 languages, but she's very fluent in English. But one of the things I love about Pikami's English is it's like this weird like it's this weird alien sounding English because it's like it's very good. You can understand everything she says, but it's like so non-regional. It's like purely non-regional because she's not from anywhere. So it's like such a learned English at a very high proficiency, and you just don't hear that a lot. But you can't really detect a Japanese speaking accent from her English at all. And so I've always found her stuff very entertaining, especially because if you understand both languages, she very fluently switches between the 2 of them, and it's like a fucking magic trick because I find it absolutely impossible to fluidly switch between like English speaking voice and a Japanese speaking voice because they require completely different parts of like your mouth and throat and everything to work to try to sound out those syllables, and she just like can immediately switch fluidly in the middle of a sentence between the 2 of them. So I've always found Pikami to be fun for some of that stuff.
She's great. I got into it because this was, I guess you did put her on the list, but
Yes,
I didn't even
she's
realize this because it came back around to me because of, because the video you put on the list was Let's Kill Daho,
Yes.
which is Pikami and Hikasa, and I think it's the other one. It says the Let's Kill Daho. It doesn't speak English as well.
Yes.
And then Pikami has to explain.
Because she's quoting, it's a line from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure where one of the stands says,
Okay.
"Let's kill the hoe," but Tomoshika doesn't know what that means, so she just sort of like says it, not realizing. And Pikami, of course, having gone to high school in America or whatever, in virtual America, knows exactly what "Let's kill the hoe" means and just loses her shit.
It's so, and then she like loses her shit and then tries to get it back together to explain and has to explain, no, that means whore, blah blah blah. It's great.
Yeah.
But they're playing Minecraft, like it's such a family friendly zone. But what really got me back around, but that was like last week when I watched the ones you put on the list, and then I guess I just fell off. But then I came back around, and this morning I got recommended a video called When Pikami Finally Loses It and Forgets that She's Family Friendly. And it's her playing this game called Jump King that I might have to check out because it looked fun. But it's like this jumping platformer, and she's failing, and she's trying to keep it together, and then she just goes off with the most, like angriest screed of cusses of goddamn motherfuck shit, just like in her cute English voice. And it's hilarious. And I'm like, oh man, I might have found my spirit animal VTuber because there's a bunch of these. Then I found a very funny video called Pikami is a family-friendly streamer, where she keeps insisting she's family-friendly and then breaking and swearing and saying all these horrible things. The best of these being, I guess there's some Winnie the Pooh baseball game.
Yes.
And she was playing this, and there's this one where Tigger is pitching, and Pikami is having trouble because Tigger keeps throwing strikes, and she gets so mad and is cussing out Tigger, and at one point she's like, I want to beat Tigger with this bat, and it's so funny because she's supposed to be family friendly, and she's playing a Winnie the Pooh game, talking about how she wants to beat Tigger to death with the baseball bat, and I'm like, this VTuber is my spirit animal VTuber, because if I ever had to stream for a living, this is what would happen to me. I would just get frustrated and mad. I remember, Sean, when you and I did a little bit of Let's Plays, and I had to play Mario 64. And I'm okay at Mario 64 in real life. When I had to be on and talking, I was absolutely terrible. We never even finished that Let's Play. It was so bad, and I just know that, like, if it had been a slightly different circumstance, I would have just started yelling and cussing and, like, being, like, Pikami here. But probably not as cute and adorable. So, there you go.
Yeah, that Winnie the Pooh one, that game, I think, became kind of infamous in VTuber circles, because I want to say it was Kodane. One of them played, this is like 2 years, this is around the time I think I started watching. It might have been a little bit before I even got into it. And I think the infamous thing is, I think it's Tigger, that when Tigger starts pitching, the ball turns invisible partway through the pitch. And so it's just like brutal. Like, it's just like, how are you supposed to play this game? And it's like this stupid cartoon Winnie the Pooh fucking shit game. But it's got this insane difficulty when you get all the way to the end of it.
Okay, I'm reading about it now. It was called Winnie the Pooh's Home Run Derby. It was a 2007 game. It was an Adobe Flash browser game.
Yes.
And it's specifically Japanese. It was made by Walt Disney Japan, and it was on Yahoo Japan. There was an English translation later on Disney.com. I just found it on archive.org, but they're saying, like, it didn't have a lot of attention at the time, but in 2012 and 2013, it became a viral phenomenon because of its extreme difficulty, especially considering its target audience of young children. That is the fucking sweet spot for a bad video game.
Yeah.
That's like angry video game nerds back in the games back in the day. Anything that's supposed to be for kids and is instead ludicrously difficult, that's the sweet spot. I love that kind of stuff.
Very good. Yeah, I'm looking through. You've shared with me a folder with a bunch of screenshots with videos that you've watched, and I see one of your Pikami ones. This is one that, like, if it had occurred to me to find this clip, I would have absolutely given you this clip, which is from her Stanley's Parable stream. Pikami goes to the broom closet. I watched, that's it. If you want to watch a whole Pikami stream, that is one to watch. If you like want to have one that you kind of come back to multiple times and just get a sustained video, her Stanley's Parable stream is fucking hilarious. But her just fighting with the narrator in the broom closet is so funny, because the whole ending is just that, like, you stay in the broom closet, it keeps giving you new dialogue over and over and over again. And the longer you stay in there, and she just settles in and she's just having a good old time just arguing back and forth with the fucking Stanley's Parable narrator.
Because that's already such a funny game.
Yes.
And it made me actually nostalgic, because that game's like 10 years old next year. I know it just had a re-release. I need to replay that game. It's so good. But yeah, no, I loved that. I love, there's one where she's playing a gacha game and she's trying not to spend money, and then she spends like $240 and doesn't get her thing. That was funny. There's a good clip called Pikami Discovers She Has a Job, where she's trying to explain that no jobs are ever fun. Jobs are bad. You can't, she's like saying, like, it's literally like jobs are there to make money, so they're not fun. So the idea of going to your job and having fun is impossible. And then everyone in the stream starts saying, aren't you having fun now? And she's like, yeah, but this isn't a job. This is like a hobby. And then someone gives, it's like literally like $20 tip, but you're making money. And she's like, I guess I do. I love jobs. And I think the like cut down clip is like a minute and a half.
Yes.
And she goes through this whole existential journey about work and fun and jobs, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that's a classic clip. Oh my god, that one's very good.
There was one called Pikami Reacts to Expensive Fails. I enjoyed this, because I actually just like watching fail videos like that. It's like people dropping expensive equipment or dropping their like phones out of helicopters and stuff. It's great. Yeah, it's good. There was one called Pikami, the second favorite VTuber. People keep saying she's number 2, and she's having to deal with that. It was good.
Yeah, Pikami's the class. I'm glad that you've fallen down the Pikami hole, because again, I that was always one when I've had this idea multiple times to think of, like, how can I do something VTuber related, because it's such a ridiculous topic to do on a podcast. Pikami was always one of the ones I thought you'd probably like.
I definitely do. She's good. And I'm making notes. I want to go back and watch that Stanley Parable one, because that was good. Let's see. I did search out, because you said you had watched this, like, the full long stream of Subaru playing Persona 4. I did try to find some subtitled clips, and I saw a couple of them. The best one, the one I saw that I loved, was her guessing the culprit. So spoilers. I
haven't gotten there yet. I have spoilers for her stream. Okay. I'm not quite there yet. I think I'm very close to her figuring it out.
Should I not say it then?
yeah. That's,
Okay.
I mean, I obviously know who the culprit is, but
Right. Okay, but it's funny. She goes through the logic, and I love the logic she uses to make the deduction. That's all I'll say. It's great.
I'm excited because her relationship with Adachi, because I've just been watching the full thing in bits and pieces as I've been going along, but like the whole streams, I'll skip the combat stuff because that's not that fun to watch. But her like how little she has suspected like a lot of the stuff that's going on in that game. She's a very sort of like, she's like the ideal, it's one of the reasons why I like her videos. She's like the ideal audience member. She just accepts everything at face value and just goes with it. And it's like exactly what you want for someone to react to that kind of stuff. She's so innocent feeling because she's not really like from that world where she hasn't consumed 1,000 different JRPGs and stuff like that. And so she doesn't like kind of anticipate the kind of cliches that all those games are going to use that most people are going to see.
Yeah.
So she was like completely duped for a while by the like copycat killer twist, which I find painfully obvious at like the midpoint of Persona 4. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe we cut the guy. And like not in a playing it up for a stream, in like a legit way where she was like, how are we going to have more of this game? Like what's going on?
It's great. I did see a moment where I think she completes her social link with Yukiko. And she gets it, and she's yelling, "This is where you hug her!" And I loved it.
Yeah, her relationship with, she completely leaned into the like scumbag, I'm just dating every single girl in this town, totally unashamedly, to the point where I know that the other shoe is going to drop on this eventually. But if you remember, there's that social link with Ebihara that you can like. There's a choice earlier in her social link to start dating her. But if you pick that choice, you don't actually get in a relationship with her because it's like you should be her friend right now because that's what she needs. She doesn't actually wants to date anybody. But Subaru's, again, so gullible. She just jumped at it immediately. It's like, oh, that's the other she's going to drop on that. Like she's trying to date all the girls in this town, but there's one of you fucked up, you lecherous old duck.
Other favorite Subaru things I found one of her talking to Miko, and they were talking about when she had a conversation with her mom, Subaru's mom, and saying that she had learned the word horny from other kids at school, but she didn't know what it meant. She thought it meant like irritated, and so she was having a bad day. She said to her mom, "I'm just really horny today," and she said her mom just like slowly walked out of the room.
Yes, that's the muda muda suru is the word in Japanese. Yes, yeah, that's good.
It's good. Let's see. From one of the Smock streams, I found these videos where they do like rankings of each other that I thought were very funny. There's one where they're doing who is the most dateable in the group, and they were supposed to not rank themselves on the list, but Mio missed that instruction and shows she ranked herself at number 3 and Subaru at the bottom at number 4. And so Subaru is really offended because not only were they not supposed to rank themselves, but Mio said she would date herself before she would date Subaru. And it's time to explain that. And Subaru is at the bottom of everyone's list except Okayu. Which is just great. It's great. It's very funny.
Yes, that's a great stream. Yeah, like Mio's reasoning of, this is like, it's just be too annoying, you know. You're always just like, oh, I'm so tired right now. It's like, oh, I'm so hungry right now. It's just like, I just don't want to deal with it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Let's see. I have learned that Korone is a big Star Wars fan, I guess, because she makes lots of Star Wars jokes. She hums the Darth Vader theme out in public. She's makes this amazing pun in Splatoon, where like they're charging and she says charging Binks because she thinks it sounds like Jar Jar Binks, and kind of the way they say it in Japanese, it kind of does. That was great. Also, I think it's Korone, but I think it's more than just one of them. A bunch of them seem to be obsessed with the Saw movies. Where does that come from? I wrote that down to ask you. It gets invoked a lot.
Well, those movies are pretty popular in Japan. So it's like if you like the sort of like splatter gore type stuff, which Korone does. And so many of them play horror games too, and I think some of them liked horror beforehand, and I think for a lot of streamers they came to like horror because horror streams are very popular, and so you play a lot of horror stuff. But yes, I think just legitimately the Saw movies are just popular in Japan.
Okay,
there's a kind of tradition of that kind of gore type stuff there.
Yeah, I had not. I guess I had just never. heard. I don't hear people talk about Saw much in America these days, so I had never heard people talk about it in Japan, but it was funny. Okay, back to, there was one other Pikami video you linked me, which is one where she's playing with Tomoshika, and Tomoshika is trying to write a letter, and she writes it by hand, and she writes, "For everyone, I am Tomoshika. I love you. I write letter to you by the hand job. I don't speak English." And then Pikami has to explain, and it's so great. She's trying to explain gingerly, and I think that Tomoshika says she meant to be like, I wrote this by hand. It's like handwritten, handcrafted, but she wrote the word hand job. And Pikami like has to like explain off mic to Tomoshika what this is, and then Tomoshika is just yelling like all these obscenities, like because she's so mad and embarrassed that this happened. It's great.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the ones I linked, because that's because that, I think that like straddled a couple of streams, because like Tomoshika did the first stream on her own where she writes, I write letter to you by the hand job, which is meant to be, I'm writing this letter to you by hand. But then chat explodes, as chat would, because both any English language person watching it is going to go crazy. But then, there's a bunch of pervs in Japan who know what hand job means, anyways. And so she realizes like, oh shit. And it's her like underlining. If I remember, she like underlines, she's trying to like underline, which word is it? Which word? Because she can't figure it out because chat's moving so fast. And so the like one of the screenshots that Pikami uses in her video trying to break down what happened, because they had like a discussion on screen, is like a screenshot with Tomoshika and the word hand job under like lined in red, which makes it so much worse because it draws all your focus to that one word. Never has there been a more amusing instance of like cross-cultural communication stumbling on somehow the word hand job by accident. It's pretty great.
Oh, when you think about it, it makes total sense that you would make that mistake. Like handwritten, handcraft, hand job. It's only because we've assigned that to the act of, what it is, right? It makes sense. Okay, I'm looking through other clips I watched and which ones I enjoyed. There was one that made me laugh very hard. It's like a 10-second clip. It's Subaru and Botan both playing Resident Evil Village. Yes. And Subaru, there's this moment where like one of the like wolf zombie dudes like jumps up from the window, and she just freaks out and goes, and it's like running around and is like firing blindly. And when that happens, when Botan is playing, she just immediately, without saying a word, shoots it through the head and moves on. And I love the just like cold, like fucking John Wick energy of that.
Yes, that went super viral when it happened. Okay. Yes, because that's one of my favorite clips. That makes me laugh every time. Because the editing of it is so good. And particularly, it's just like Botan's just a fucking monster. Like if you watch any horror game thing she does, she is utterly unfucking flappable, and it's amazing. And she plays like a bunch of first person shooter stuff. So yeah, it's her reaction time of like, it's like 0.1 second. It's like you can barely see how many frames have passed since the monster popped up. It's a perfect headshot too. It's she just shoots it right into the head, walks outside to go fucking finish it off. It's great. Like she's just a beast. I don't know how she's able to, like, even when I replayed the game and I knew the jump scare was coming, I wasn't like freaked out and shouting, but it still startles you enough that you're not just immediately going to like, oh yeah, pop let me just kill you immediately.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, I watched a little bit of Niji Sanji. I need to watch more Niji Sanji. But there was a video called Honma Himawari Doesn't Know Joe Biden.
Yes.
This one's great. They're doing like a quiz. They're quizzing Himawari, and she just has no idea. She just sees like this. She's like, he looks like nice old man.
Yes.
It's Joe Biden.
Do you remember what name she wrote down for Joe Biden?
I'm trying to remember because it was so funny, but I didn't get a screenshot of it. It made me laugh super hard, though. What was it?
It's Watson Bakery.
Yes, Watson Bakery. That was so good. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I forget the name of the guy who's, like, administering the quiz, like, loses his shit immediately. He's just like, Panya, which means bakery. Like, Panya, united. Oh, yeah. Panya. It's like, oh, it's a bakery. It's like, why is the president opened up the fucking bakery?
It was also, though, like, sociologically interesting to me because she like explains it. She's like, well, I know the previous guy because he was on the news all the time, like Trump's-on, right? And she's like, yeah, Trump was the last president. She's like, yeah, well, he was on the news all the time. I haven't seen this guy. And he's sitting here like, yeah, because he's doing his job.
Yeah.
But that makes sense, right? That actually makes total sense to me that if you're in Japan and you're not focusing on like international politics a lot, well, you would definitely know who Trump is because he's in the news all the time. I can understand you not knowing who Joe Biden is. Joe Biden, the appeal of Joe Biden is that he is quiet and behind the scenes, right?
Yes. But the I feel like it puts into perspective one of the ways that maybe you get like some of the names we get in, say, like the Gundam franchise, that the name she came up with for just like generic, like, let me come up with a name for an American guy, was for an American guy was Watson Bakery. Amazing. Perfect. Like, if you put that into Gundam, that would make our fucking top 10 list for Gundam names.
Oh god, that'd be, I mean, there's a character right now named Chuatari Pan Lunch. You're not that far off from Watson Bakery at that point. So, yeah, it's indeed. Okay, speaking of bakeries, there's this video I found called When Subaru Stops Being the Straight Man, and it's a smock stream, and she starts talking about her dream of opening a jam store. Yes. And they go off on this tangent because I think it's Korone is like, and I'll sell the bread. But then they're going off like, well, I'm not going to make the bread. I'm going to buy the bread and I'm going to sell it. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about this long digression about Subaru wanting to open a jam store and someone else wanting to make bread but not actually make the bread that made me laugh very hard.
Yeah, that one's a classic. One of the things that's great about Subaru is that she, in that kind of like manzai comedy dynamic, right? She's the Tsukomu one, so she's a Tsukomi, so she's like the one that comes up with usually like the punchlines and the comedic retorts because she's got the funny, like, angry duck voice and all that kind of stuff. And so for that bit, it was like she is trying to be the one that sets things up and not the one that pays off the gags. And everybody else is just sort of extending the gag over and over and over and over again. It's great. And then I believe that's the one where Mio then talks about how it's like, well, you don't even need to get up super early in the morning to make jam, you know? Jam's got a super long shelf life. So it's like, you can make jam whenever. It's like, well, I want to make jam early in the morning. It's like, I mean, you also need to give it some time to cool down, so it's maybe it would make sense to make it later. Just let it sit overnight. It's like, I want to make jam early in the morning. That's why I'm making jam. It's like, well, you don't have to.
It's great. I found the video that led me to my question about Saw earlier, because the video is how Korone responds to a handsome guy trying to flirt. And it was like a hypothetical, like, from a listener, like, what if you're in, like, a cafe and someone flirts with you? And she says, you want me to toss you into the twisting rack? And then the subtitles have to specify that's from Saw 3. Like, because she just throws it out as this super casual, like, funny line about, like, that's how she would flirt. And it's this reference to Saw 3. I love it.
That's very good. I don't think I've actually seen that clip. I'll have to bring that one up.
They're all here for you. Let's see. I saw a Subaru song. What was this? So Big Sky Subaru Vark live version. Fantastic Future. That was on her channel when I went and checked her channel. It was her dancing around and singing. I didn't realize Subaru's character model looks exactly like a Pokemon trainer.
Yes, it does. Yeah, she's got like the backwards hat and all that stuff. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Let's see. I saw Smock make their power levels. That made me laugh because they all fought over that. Saw a video of Subaru going through her past tweets, which were all very weird. Like, was this like her tweets like before she became a streamer?
No, so those are, so Subaru is one of the earliest Hololive streamers. She's from the second generation. So she's been around since before I started watching it. Well, before I started watching. I started watching after, like, around the time Botan in that group, which is the 5th generation, joined. So, like, Subaru predates, like, Korone and Okayu. Like, she's been around for a while. In early, what we call Shoki Subaru, or like the early Subaru, basically, it's just kind of a different streamer. That's where you got like that ASMR video, where she had no idea what the fuck she was doing. And so it's kind of like a joke within the community that's like, early Subaru is a fucking just a complete maniac. And so her first tweet is just like utterly gobbledygook. She didn't understand how like hashtags worked at all, so she just wanted to throw more hashtags on because it made it look more professional or whatever, and she just throws in this hashtag that's like hashtag Q and Terra, which just means like Earth and Earth, basically, 2 different languages. But the hashtag was broken because she used an ampersand, and that breaks the hashtag. But she didn't understand she didn't understand that hashtags like are a thing that you can like search in all that, and like they're not, you don't just like make up random hashtags unless you're doing it as a joke. But she didn't realize that was a joke that she was making. So yeah, early Subaru is like its whole own dimension of insanity. So watching her react to some of the shit she did when she had no idea what she was doing is amazing, because it's like a different world. It's a different world, and you can't understand how the fuck she survived this to the point where she's so successful now.
Okay, here's a Korode video I loved. It was called Korode Pets the Doggo, Immediately Commits Arson. And that is when she's playing, I think, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And she, like, gets off her horse and finds a dog, and she's super excited because the game lets you pet the dog. So she pets the dog, fun dog, very nice, like, a wholesome moment. And then she gets on a roof and accidentally sets the whole house on fire, and then just runs away. And, like, people are chasing her and everything, and the whole town is, like, lighting up, and she runs away, yelling, sorry, sorry. And it's fantastic. It feels like a pretty clear distillation of Korone's personality of petting the dog and then starting an arson.
Yes, all of her Assassin's Creed stuff I think is super funny. Yeah.
Okay, video you talked about a little last week, but we need to go into. It is when Subaru is explaining why she joined HoloLive.
Yes.
That I just about died laughing at this one because she's explaining the whole story. You tell it, Sean. You can tell it better than me. It's so good.
Well, yeah, I mean, because basically, again, she is not an otaku. She's not a part of, like, that whole world, which is very unique, because all those VTubers are, like, hardcore anime nerds, and they've been doing game streams and different online personas for years and stuff like that. Subaru, none of that. So she was, like, you know, working a part-time job or whatever, and then her house burned down. So she had nowhere to live. She had, like, no money. There was this series of videos called Virtual Bachan, like virtual grandma, like virtual grandma, like an early, like, primordial VTuber, basically, kind of thing, playing Skyrim and shit like that on the internet. And she saw some of those. She saw an audition thing for HoloLive, and which is when, like, HoloLive was very, like, unknown. Like, VTubers were not a thing that was, like, a broadly known phenomena back then in Japan, even, like, amongst, you know, like, a more niche audience. And so she had no preconceptions for it whatsoever, had no idea what it was, had never streamed anything, didn't know how to stream, none of that shit, had nowhere to live. But she thought, oh, it'll be like those funny videos of, like, a virtual grandma that I watch sometimes on YouTube. I'll apply for that. She applies with no knowledge whatsoever. She gets through the interview process, according to the hiring manager, basically entirely just on her passion. It's just like, you know, she's a real go-getter. It's basically how she got hired, and that's it. And so she has to learn how to stream and buy, like, a $10 fucking microphone, and try to figure out how to do any of that shit, in, like, a brand new apartment that she has to lease because her house fucking burned down.
It feels like that has to be like when you think about Subaru, like, her personality, like, yes, that makes total sense as the origin story. It's great. It started from chaos, it ended in chaos. Let's see, here's a video I found that when I saw this was early last week, but it had posted 38 minutes earlier, and it was Korone and Sonic the Hedgehog meeting in 3D for this HoloLive event in Sonic Frontiers. One of the most purely surreal things you will ever see of Korone and Sonic hanging out. And it's Sonic with his Japanese voice. The only way it could be funnier is if it was, like, English Sonic hanging out with, like, Japanese Korone, but I loved it.
So Korone is an official Sonic the Hedgehog ambassador in Japan.
I did not. Oh my god, that's
so
great.
if you want to see some Korone and Sonic the Hedgehog content, there's more of that online if you want to seek it out. She has a Sonic the Hedgehog specific themed outfit as well, with, like, a Sonic, like, honestly, it's kind of similar to the Hatsune Miku Sonic look. It's very good. Because she did a bunch of Sonic the Hedgehog streams, like, a year ago or so, which is the first time she ever played the games, but she played, like, a bunch of them, you know, up through, like, Sonic Adventure 2, I think was the last one she did. And then that got enough attention from Sega that Sega does all these live streams in Japan to promote Sonic the Hedgehog stuff with Sonic, like, in the Japanese voice of Sonic and stuff, playing the character. And so they brought her on board. So there's been quite a few videos of her and, like, her interacting with Sonic, and it is very surreal. It's bizarre. There is a set of, like, DLC that only exists in Japan for Sonic Frontiers that puts, like, Korone's, like, sound effects in the game. So, like,
how do I get this?
When you have to get, so probably if you did the PC version, you maybe would figure out. I'm sure this will get out there somewhere on PC in America. But it's like when Sonic boosts, Korone's voice comes on, and goes like "Orayo," and he boosts off into the distance and shit. It's fucking crazy. How much, like, in Japan, Korone has been, you know, has this whole, like, marketing thing that she does with Sonic whenever, like, new Sonic shit happens. It's pretty great.
Here's a Korone video I loved. She's on stream, and in the chat someone says they're off to go watch Shishiron, who I guess is another streamer.
That's a nickname for Botan.
Oh, okay. So they're off to watch Botan. And she says she's offended by that. She starts scolding the viewer, and she says, it's as if you're at a 7-Eleven, and then you say to them, I'm going to go to a Lawson now. These are both convenience stores in Japan. And she says, well, okay, not quite. That's slightly different. You idiot. It's so good. So I love the idea. It's like, that's offensive. That's like you're at a 7-Eleven saying, I'm going to go to a Lawson. Oh, well, okay, not quite. She like backpedals her own metaphor. It made me laugh. I loved it.
Very good.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I'm through most of what I had. I have just passed a video called Korone is a Volkswagen, which is where she's playing Mario Kart in a Volkswagen, yelling she's a Volkswagen. Not very complicated, but it's funny. That time Korone's dad dunked on her after beating Saga Frontier. That's one where she's playing, and then her dad, like, she beats it, and then her dad is like, dunks on her for it because it was like easy. That one's funny. Yeah, I have a lot of Korone in here. You can probably tell she is my favorite of the ones I have hit. That's what I said last week. I kind of tried to like break out of it this week, but I just wound up. YouTube could tell I loved Korone, so I got a lot of her videos. So I will. There's other ones I still want to check out. Like you talking about Botan and the horror streams. I want to see more of that. I made a note about seeing more of Pikami and Stanley Parable. I want to go back and see more of those Subaru Pokemon videos because they were making me laugh. Because next week is our last week of this. But as you can tell, my heart for the moment belongs to Korone, my favorite of the ones I've seen, because they keep showing up in my recommends for a reason.
I mean, I made her the first one on that list for a good reason. Like, I think she's the best onboard into VTuberdom possible. Like, I can't imagine somebody not liking Korone's stuff. Like, it's so funny. She's super adorable. And I think it's just like it, and particularly for a Western audience, because she does like to do some like Western games, and she makes references to like English language stuff and like weird movies, and like she makes a reference to fucking Prison Break in one of the Super Mario Brothers English only streams, and stuff like that. Like, you know, she just likes like some Western content that I think it makes her also fun and like accessible. You know, it's like the big thing that was like the big breakout video for her in the West was the Ikem Bokum Banjo-Kazooie thing. I think partially because Banjo-Kazooie is a way more popular over here than it is Japan. I mean, it's an English language game, right? Even if it's kind of a genre that we usually think of Japanese developers in, like platformer. You know, Banjo-Kazooie is a very English game, literally English, and that is British. And so that was like the window that got you like everybody into Korone. So yes, so that I'm happy that like Korone and Pikami, like if you had asked me what would be the two streamers that I would guess that you would get into before we did this project, those would be the two that I would name. Both because I think like they're very like accessible, and I think they like hit some of your sense of humor specifically.
Well, good. Yeah, I think it's the chaos that makes me laugh. Mm-hmm. I have a list of homework I want to do for next week that I've kind of made while we're talking. So yeah, and obviously if Sean, you have more you want me to see before next week, you've managed to turn your birthday podcast into a full month's worth of work. It's impressive. I really, you know, game recognized game here.
Man, it's like what Pikami said, man. This is work. This is fun. You know, this is just, you know, this. I have given you a whole world of online media to engage with. I have taken you out of a little small pool that you were in, and I've thrown you into the ocean, Jonathan. Think of it that way. And it is the dawn of the final day for Jonathan's VTuber adventure. We're recording this on November 20th at 4:07 p.m. It has been 3 weeks, Jonathan, since I told you what VTubers are. And it is time for us to arrive at a culminating point to find out, do you know what VTubers are? How have they affected your life? And what will you be doing going forward? What are your impressions, Jonathan, now that you're at the end of your long journey?
Well, I'm becoming a VTuber. I have signed a contract with HoloLive. I'm Johnny Boy now, the new fun VTube character, and I will be playing mostly Pokemon games.
So I think people don't know that there's a Hollow Stars English Generation 2 is in the works. I think you're probably going to get terminated because you're leaking that information now here on this podcast. But I'm excited that you have this opportunity. Finally, that Jonathan, you are VTuber itself.
Yes. No, I am not actually. If you couldn't tell, that was a joke. But it's been fun. I actually enjoyed this week most of all because I kind of came out with a system for watching videos that I wanted to see and talk about, which is that I just made I'm actually surprised I didn't think about this in one of the previous weeks, but I just made myself a playlist on YouTube, and whenever I saw videos while I was scrolling through YouTube that I thought would be fun, I would throw them in the playlist, because sometimes I would be scrolling through and I would be going to look for something else where I wasn't there to watch, just for whatever reason, but I kept thinking about it, so I had this ongoing list of ones to watch. One of my first goals for this one was to try to watch some clips of Botan, who we had talked about, who is crazy and wonderful, and genuinely one of the best video game players I've ever fucking seen in any kind of streaming thing. The difference between her and a pro FPS player though is that she's a fucking comedian. It's crazy that she can be very funny but also get nothing but headshots. One of the first videos I found of hers was just a compilation of the headshot moments that made her go viral online, including the Resident Evil one we talked about last week, and some other ones, and they're great. They're so funny.
Yeah, no, Shishido Botan is one of my personal favorites. Yeah, she's a very rare Japanese streamer that plays lots of first-person shooters. FPSs are not particularly popular in Japan. But Botan, not only does she really like those games and play a lot of them, she is ridiculously good at Call of Duty, Battlefield, and that kind of stuff in particular. She plays lots of multiplayer stuff. But she also has, I think, the best laugh of any streamer I've ever seen. Her laugh is so incredibly infectious that you could just watch a 10-minute video of her laughing at dumb shit happening in games she's playing, and it's the best video you've ever seen on the internet.
I mean, I have a video here called Botan Makes Cute Noises After 11 Kill Streak, and I think that's one of those. One of my favorite things about her that I have learned is that she's been playing a lot of Modern Warfare 2, the new Call of Duty, and she is in love with Ghost, and she also basically treats Captain Price like her senpai, and is looking for his approval, and it's very funny.
Yes, that clip of her in the sniping level of Modern Warfare 2, and every time she makes a shot and she turns back to Captain Price, it's hey, did you see that? Did you see that, Captain Price? Hey, and then she makes another shot and does a thing. It's very good.
Yep, I have seen that many times, or I haven't seen that many, but I saw that clip and I loved it.
Yeah.
There's a video I found that is HoloLive aim comparison in Resident Evil 8, which is just different HoloLive players going through this one scene where you have to shoot all the locks on this door, and then a monster comes out and you kill it. And Botan she hits all the locks on the door with inhuman speed and accuracy, and then she kills the monster. But then it goes to all the others, and some of them just completely miss everything. Miko ignores the door and just kills the monster. It's very funny.
Yes, yeah, that's that one. I believe that went viral. It was specifically the Miko Botan comparison of where Miko spends it's literally 90 seconds trying to slowly aim and shoot all these different points, and then Botan does it, and it's 2 seconds or something, and she shoots these 5 red dots and just goes through.
Yes. Here's another video I liked with Botan. It's called When Botan Proved That She Is Better Than the Game, and it's from Modern Warfare 2018, and Price is covering this entrance for her, as she's going through and shooting, and then she realizes Price is in a terrible position because he's in this little nook off from the side of the door, and basically from his position can't see or aim into the room that he says he's going to cover you in. And so she's looking at him and says, no matter how you look at it, you can't cover me with that position, learn to cover me better. And then she goes in and kills everyone, and it's very funny.
Yeah, she's just giggling the entire time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I liked that. Botan definitely, I saw a lot of her stuff. But I watched a lot this week. I have another 75 clips in here or something. So I definitely went through a lot of them. What else should I talk about here, Sean?
And just what are some of the other, are there any other new streamers that we haven't really talked about that you kind of discovered in week 3?
I don't know if I found that many new ones. I did watch more Pikami stuff. Who I had just discovered at the very beginning of, or very end of the last week, so I mentioned her last time. So I saw some of her stuff, and I enjoyed that. I watched a little bit more of her stream of her doing the Stanley Parable, which is extremely funny.
Yes.
Let's see. I found a video that was Pikami talking about how one day she went to like the hardware store to like get like soundproofing for her studio, but she didn't want to tell this person she was a YouTuber because she found it embarrassing. And so she just kept saying like, look, I need a bunch of soundproof material that I can put in my basement, and I can scream a lot and no one will hear it. And this guy was freaked out because he even asked her like, oh, are you a YouTuber? And she's like, no, I'm not a YouTuber. And so it sounded like she was a serial killer. It's great.
Or like a serial killer, or she's got like a sex dungeon, you know?
Yes.
It's just like, I want to like engage in some very hardcore activity that if I just am screaming my throat out that nobody else is going to be able to hear.
Yes. I love that one. There's a comment on that video that says, by not admitting to being a YouTuber, she made her reasons for soundproofing sound so much worse. And it's very true. I found a really good video this morning that is all of the different HoloLive players playing Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which are the Diamond Pearl games for Switch. And they find the lovey-dovey couple, the couple like that you fight and like they have their Pokemon together and they're hugging and like being all like, you know, PDA and everything, and everyone is just like mad at them. Like there's the screenshot I have is Subaru looking at them and just saying this is unforgivable shit, which is great. I think it's Miko has a line that like I need to turn this into a meme because it's so funny. The screenshot is just her looking and she says, "Hey, I found the normies, guys."
Yes,
and I love that. But it's everyone reacting to the normies, which is very good.
I think I saw the Miko version of that clip because that sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Here's another Pikami clip I loved, which is called Pikami Can't Count to 20, which is when she's playing Minecraft and she's laying down track and she's counting in groups of 20, and she goes through and she gets to 19 and then says 12 and then goes on. And people keep calling her out on this, and I think she doesn't register that she's said something else, but everyone else is confused because she keeps reverting to 12 when she hits 20. And that is one of the most funny, like, relationships between a streamer and like their audience I've ever seen. I did watch, because Pokemon is on my mind, because when we're recording this, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have just come out. I've been playing those a little bit, and I watched more of Subaru's different Pokemon videos, and they're so good. I love her entire run. There is this one video that is it's like a 15-minute clip from the end of her like rivalry with Okayu, and it's their final battle together, and she wins. And it's so funny because Subaru like started out the Pokemon journey knowing nothing about Pokemon. She'd never played the games before. She didn't really understand like the type matchups and all of that stuff. And she winds up winning the game, and it's fantastic, and it's extremely entertaining. And she has even done stuff like for this last match, she's drawn out an entire chart. You don't see it, but she's talking about it, of all the things she thinks Okayu might do. And what she will do in response, so she can try to like win the game and game it out. And I thought that was like, they need to like make an anime out of that, because it's just such a good like anime story of her coming from behind and winning.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff is the reason why Subaru is my favorite streamer to watch, particularly for like the like longer videos and not just seeing clips of, is because you get a lot of stuff like that where she's not naturally like into these kinds of things, but she's so like sort of single-minded and dedicated, and like she's got a very hard-working kind of mindset, and that kind of working at it bit by bit and pulling yourself up until eventually, yes, she finally manages to triumph over Okayu. And the whole like narrative effect formed of like Okayu is just this like cruel, cold taskmaster of her Pokemon who cares little for their comfort, and then Subaru like literally cries when she puts one of her like Justin back into the box, because she doesn't want to she wants all of her Pokemon friends with her, and she doesn't want to put anyone away in the box. It is a true, you know, heartwarming tale of how love and compassion can win out over hard, cruel efficiency.
The top comment on that clip is, further proof that Subaru's life is an anime. What a perfect comeback story. Training her rivals' discarded Pokemon, because that's part of it, is she took one of the Pokemon Okayu gave her and like won with it. Getting absolutely floored in their first battle, rejecting the meta-only path and building her team of favorites, beating the champion through sheer friendship, and then this, it's enough to get its own MAL page, my anime list page. And I agree, it absolutely is.
Yes. Yeah, that's just like a all-time great HoloLive clip moment for me, I think, is yes. the whole Subaru Okayu Pokemon arc.
Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of clips in here I loved. I definitely, like I said, watched a lot more of Subaru. There's one where she is learning from the chat about basically Pokemon types and how they all work, and they're like helping her figure it out. And she's talking about how she wants to open a water gym because water is the most powerful from like something she's like thought of, and all of that is this is probably all from the same like probably set of streams, but I saw it as different clips online and they were very good. So I enjoyed that. I'm trying to see if I found any new ones. I mean, I did continue to watch a lot of Korone because Korone is the best. I love her. I mean, they're all good. I shouldn't say best. She might be my favorite, but they're all good. I did find one that she is watching The Ring with a friend, with Louie, who's another streamer. Or Rui, I'm actually not sure how they say that. And she keeps, like, kind of accidentally doing actual jump scares in the room while they're watching the movie and freaking out Louie. And she doesn't want to watch the movie anymore. That was very funny.
Yeah, Takane Dewey, who is the other streamer you're talking about there, she's from the 6th generation of Hololive, so she's relatively new. And one is her like first set of streams she did, she played Outlast, that horror game, because she's like legitimately really bad at horror. And it was like she did the thing of like, you know, if you scream, you know, you have to end the stream right away. And her first stream was like 10 seconds long. I think it was like the sound of the main menu starting up startled her, and she actually got startled, knocked over a bottle of water, and then she like freaked out because like her water was spilling all over her desk. It's like, like most of the video is just her reacting to that and then being like, I gotta finish the stream now. And she started up the game for like legitimately like an hour later and played it for like 15 minutes before she got to the first big jump scare. And
that's
lost
amazing.
her shit.
Because Outlast is hardcore. That game is freaky. Here's one of my favorite videos I've seen is called Pikami Quits Being a Drug Dealer. I couldn't identify what game she's playing, but she's going around dealing drugs, and she gets arrested at one point, and then she's just walking around going, this job sucks. I don't want to do this job anymore. I'm going to do something nice. And she goes and like does other things in the game. I enjoyed that a lot because Pikami seems very wholesome, and I like the idea of her dealing drugs, and I like the idea of her deciding to give up on it also.
Yes. Yeah, I believe I saw that clip as well. It's very good. I see you've got in here, you do have a lot of clips from the most recent Pokemon game, which is most of the stuff I've been watching over the past couple of days of VTubers, because there's like a whole genre of video I keep on getting recommended, which is different VTubers reacting to the evolutions of their starter Pokemon. I don't know if you've seen any of those.
Yes.
But it's always very funny because you always like the first evolution the most because it's the adorable little cute one, and all of them are like, please just still be cute, just however you evolve, be cute, be cute, be cute. And then they're all like weird, you know, as with all the first like started Pokemon, they always have like that second evolution is like the gangly awkward teenager version of the Pokemon, and they're all just like, oh, god damn it, like I just wanted my cute little cat, man. It's like, why do you have to turn into a weird like cat ninja teenage like, you know, angsty motherfucker?
The best one I saw of those was Aqua reacting to Fuecoco's evolution, and it's exactly what you're describing of like, please be cute. And then when it's this really awkward middle phase, and she just says at the end of the video, well, we'll hold out hope. It'll become more handsome from here on out. And I love that. Of like trying to like kind of logic it away. But that one, she says, your first step to becoming handsome. That one's very good. I saw some different ones that are just like different VTubers like together kind of like chatting and not playing anything, and some of those are very funny. There was one where they're doing a you laugh you lose challenge, the Smock people, the SMOK, and I think it was Okayu she laughed and she had to add, basically they translated it in the subtitles as in it to the end of all of her sentences, and that made everyone laugh more. That one's really good. Yes,
I think it's them saying dengana at the end of all their sentences in Japanese and just trying to like freak people out. And if the punchline of that is like Korone just kind of zones out, like, Korone, are you talking? She just goes, huh? And that's what slowly gets everybody to start cracking up. It's a very good video. I've seen that video like 100 times because it's one of my favorites. There's something about like, it's such a good slow build up to them trying to get everyone else to laugh, and then Korone accidentally does it.
Yeah, that one's great. Speaking of Pokemon, I do have a bunch of those evolution ones that you were talking about. I have Korone discovering there is a really cute dog Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet named Fido. I forget its name in Japanese, as usual, is better, but it's this doughy little dog that I really like. And Korone finds it and is immediately in love because it's her. It's a dog. It looks like her. She even names it after herself. She names it Korone, and she's like debating, like, is that too egotistical? It's like, no, it's a dog. I have to name it, and it's great. And I do enjoy. That is one of my favorite Pokemon in those games so far.
Yeah, it's very good. I see you have a video that I watched. This one that I really like is Okayu and Kodane, like, dude taking a selfie in the game, and
but it's broken.
The new Pokemon games, like, weird broken animations and stuff that can happen sometimes, where like Okayu's character's arm animations break, where like the right arm is doing like a mirrored version of the pose it's supposed to be doing. So if you imagine like someone doing like a heart sign with their two arms, what if like the right arm just like twisted 180 degrees around, like it was like broken and sticking out to the right, but still doing like this weird upside down heart shape, and the other heart is just sort of hanging there, and every single pose is mirrored like that, and it is very funny.
It's fucking full on body horror. It's terrifying. Yes. And it's literally, it's like on one of their screens it's not doing that, and then on the other person's screen it's fucking up. So it's a completely just the game is like broken in this weird way. Yeah, I enjoy any Pokemon games. Might like, I think the best reason for Pokemon to still be a series is for VTubers, is what I have discovered, because it's very funny in this context.
It's the only avenue by which I interact with Pokemon, but it makes for good streams because it's like slow paced, it's fun, it's like very kind of like friendly, and everybody is like kind of can get into it, and then there's lots of like dumb opportunities for jokes by naming Pokemon weird things and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. I did take some inspiration from this, Sean. I started doing nicknames for all of my Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, which I've never really engaged with the nickname system, but I'm having fun just giving dumb names to all of my Pokemon, some inspired by the VTubers.
Yeah, I've never been a nickname person, but I haven't played a Pokemon game in years, so I probably, were I to play a Pokemon again, I would probably do the same thing and have to come up with silly names for everybody.
Yeah, it's fun. I started with Quaxley, who is the cool duck Pokemon, and I named him Dewey, because Dewey is the blue of Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and Quaxley is blue, so it fit, and I think it's good. I like throwing him out there. He's got his fucking pompadour. He's called Dewey. It actually fits pretty well.
And then eventually, is that the one that turns into the one that like dances in its final evolution?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, probably.
You're in for a fun. That if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's got a very weird idle animation in its last evolution. That is silly.
Nice. Let's see. Here's a fun Korone moment I enjoyed. This was on some random stream. She's talking about she's been studying math with this game called Math King Middle School Edition. And she says, then her grandma, she was telling this to her grandma, and her grandma said, instead of that, maybe you should start with something more elementary. And the video is called, That Time Korone Got Roasted by Her Grandma.
Jeez, I don't think I've seen that one. That's
pretty
good.
Brutal. It's pretty funny. Yeah, because she's like having trouble with math, and so she's talking about this, and she talks about her grandma fucking owned her. That was great. There's a whole video of Subaru talking. I've found several different videos about, because I had noticed this, but I didn't know the explanation, and then I found videos kind of explaining it, where Subaru, her like laughs are always translated as duck noises in the various subtitles, and she's learning about this, and she's like kind of both amused and incensed by it, like, I don't sound like a duck. And then there's a whole like chain of these where she eventually accepts she is a duck, and then there's ones where she's just talking about her general sense of like embarrassment with this. And then I found a video this morning that was her talking to she's telling a story about talking to a friend in real life, saying that she's lost the ability to feel all embarrassment after her YouTube experiences. And like she said, this has happened, and then her friend told her, you're really loud. And Subaru's like, yes, I am. And I thought that was funny.
The whole duck thing with Subaru is great because it all comes from that ASMR stream. I mean, basically, where I think it had already been a joke where her voice gets like kind of cracked a little bit like Donald Duck.
Yeah.
And so when she was doing the ASMR, people were commenting in the chat in that video of like, it's like Donald swimming in a lake or whatever, when she's like making the water bottle, like shaking the water bottle next to the microphone. That's why she's like yelling, it's not Donald. It's not Donald Duck. It's like, this isn't Donald Duck. And the more angry she gets, the more she sounds like Donald Duck. And then slowly over time, she is just like, she's been psychologically beaten down to the point where basically the duck thing is more or less official. And she has like a cartoon duck that is one kind of her mascots. It's like a whole thing now where like Hololive releases official merchandise of the duck with the Subaru hat on it and everything. But for a long time, she was supposed to just be a human. She's not like Okayu or Korone that are designed as, this is a cat girl, this is a dog girl. She was never supposed to be a duck, but in her heart of hearts, in her soul, she's just a duck, and it eventually had to come out into her character.
That's pretty fucking fantastic. I love it. I need to get some of that duck merch. That's great. Let's see. I have a video here called Korone Assassinates Santa, and that is in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. She finds an old man who looks like Santa and accidentally assassinates him. That's pretty good.
Yeah, accidentally.
Yeah, I found one called Korone bought way too many drinks for Koyori during their off collab. And this is great. They're in the same room and they're playing, and Korone is like trying to be a good host and keeps offering Koyori like more and more like drinks and like not alcohol necessarily, but like different teas and things. And Koyori's like, I'm full. You're making me sick. And it's very funny. Because it's like clearly not a bit. It's like Korone trying to be a good host and overdoing it. I enjoyed that. Any of the stuff that's like off game is honestly usually pretty entertaining when it's just them like bouncing off each other. I enjoy all of that stuff. But yeah,
that's one of like the big benefits of Hololive is you get a lot of that kind of interaction because they're all part of the same business. They all like know each other. They all interact off stream, and so you get a lot more of that kind of like banter back and forth than you do with like, you know, Pikami doesn't have that as much with other people. She's got like Tomoshika that she'll sometimes do streams with, but you don't get the regular sort of like built-in relationship collabs the way you do with like Hololive.
Yeah. I also, so in that same vein, I found one that was Korone and Okayu talking, and they got a question from chat, who do you think is the smartest member in Hololive? They immediately say Botan, and then they start going through other qualities, and they're like the cutest, or like they're like the most beautiful, the like most skilled, the scariest, and they just keep going Botan for like every single one of them, which was very funny.
Yes, though Botan is easily the smartest. There's a one of the Hololive streamers is named Choco Sensei, and she used to do a series of streams like this. She probably still does it. It's just it only comes around when you get new Hololive people. Where when new people join Hololive, she does like a quiz. And it's like a kind of standardized. It's not like an IQ test, but it's a series of like sort of general knowledge questions and stuff. And it's a timed quiz, and she administers it to them to like see what score they get. And I forget what Botan got, but it was like twice as much as the next highest person. Like it was ridiculous. Like she's legitimately really smart, and there was like a lot of like, because the more questions she answered, the more obscure the questions became, and she kept on getting them, and it's like she is like wickedly smart. And it is very true. She's smarter than either of us. Like Botan is kind of scary. It's like how are you this good at all this stuff and know all this shit? It's like she's kind of amazing.
It's great. I found more in here. This is going back to Pokemon, but this is one of my favorite moments I saw, which is Subaru reacting to her Pokemon egg hatching for the first time. And I think it's one of the like dinosaur Pokemon that you get in This is a Diamond. But she gets it and she's like, I don't know if this is an act. This could be completely real. Who knows? It's probably real with her. But she's like crying. She goes, Subaru has become a mother. Looking at her Pokemon. And that moment was so iconic to me. I had to screenshot it because it's so good. There's another moment like that when Nishiki, her Magikarp, evolves into Gyarados. And she's so proud of little Nishiki becoming a big Gyarados. That one's great. Yep. I'm going through all the duck videos here. I guess I didn't see that many new people this week. I kind of like focused on some of the things we talked about from last time and just wanting to find more of like these people that I had like started to like.
Very good. So
including here's a video with Subaru and Botan where Subaru refers to Botan as her Aniki. And I love that.
Yes.
And she corrects herself for saying, it's like, maybe Anishi? Because, like, big sister. She's like, no, it's Aniki.
Yeah, it's Aniki.
It's great. Anyway, yeah. So what do you want to do now?
So I think it's now time. I think we should kind of sum up. I want, like, now that you're at the end of this journey, I want to just get your overall impressions now. What do you think of VTubers? What's the appeal of VTubers? Are you going to continue on your VTuber journey without my guiding hand? Like, what are your overall impressions now at the end of this path?
I love it. It's surprisingly wholesome. I think that's the thing that surprised me most. Because I will be honest, when you first asked me what are VTubers, I was taken aback because I didn't know much about it, and I thought it was like a sex thing. Because look, it's something on the internet that's kind of weird and involves cat girls. I'm gonna assume it's a sex thing if I don't know. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, I'm right. Let's be honest. It's the internet.
I mean, to be fair, there are VTubers that like have that. It's not as if you can't get sex stuff associated
Right.
with VTubers. Like there
You can
are
get sex stuff with
niches
literally
out there.
anything online.
Yes,
Yeah.
that niche exists, but that is not the main thing that VTubers do.
That's why I was taken aback. I would not expect you to have brought weird sex like robot people to my door. And you didn't. Instead, it's like, it's, you know, exactly what we've talked about in previous weeks. I like it as kind of a twist on the streamer genre where people are playing characters and having fun and like the group dynamic is really emphasized. It does have this like, it's almost like pro wrestling for kids, I guess is how I would describe it in some sense, where you even have like, what's the guy who's the head of Hololive? Yagu is what they call him.
Yeah,
Yago, who's kind of like, I mean, I don't get the sense that he's an asshole in the way the head of the WWE is, but like, you know, plays kind of the heel role in places, and like, you know, they're all kind of making fun of him at times. And so you've got this group energy, and all of that. Just, I like it. It's very funny. It's creative. It's silly. It makes fun use out of different games that I guess some of them are like, you know, they're playing Minecraft, and I've seen, you know, everyone on Earth and their mother has done a Minecraft stream, right? But then they sometimes do very creative games. It's fun to get the crazy horror stuff. It's fun when Korone will seemingly be very wholesome and then just drop out of nowhere a Saw reference, because she's super into horror movies. I love it. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know exactly how much I'll do with it going forward, but I am subscribed to several of the channels that I wound up finding over and over again in my recommends that like, oh, these put out good clips. I'm going to subscribe to them. So they're it's in my feed, it's in my recommends, it's not going anywhere.
Good. So you're accepting VTubers into your life and into your heart.
I think that's fair. I think they are going to be part of my YouTube diet. I'm particularly excited right now because the new Pokemon is out, and I assume there will just be a lot of fun from that.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's always something that's fun, is that you can basically count, particularly for like the Japanese VTubers, any big new like Japanese game release, and some big Western releases, there's going to be a bunch of good content. You know, like when Elden Ring came out, there was a bunch of, you know, everyone was playing Elden Ring and getting weird and wacky clips out of that. So it is another way for you to engage with a lot of like the big video games that come out. But then also, I think, as you've identified, a lot of the best content, I think this is one of the things that kind of surprised me as I got deeper into VTuber stuff, because I always just had this bias assuming that that like streamers are just like video game people. That's like all they do is that they stream video games. But oftentimes the best content is just them chatting or them coming up with like a dumb conversation-based game they can do together. And that streaming can take that form as well, is something that I, going into VTubers, never really expected, that being like a style of content that could be so successful.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I feel like I've learned a lot about the internet. Maybe a little bit about myself, you know. It's pretty good.
And at the end of the day, so of the VTubers you've watched, I think I know the answer to this question, but which one is your favorite?
Probably Korone, in the sense that any video I've ever clicked on of hers I find funny, but like Subaru is inching up there. I really like her, and I really like Pikami. Those would be my top 3. I would like to watch more Subaru stuff. I feel like Korone is best in the short bursts that you get of like little clips. Korone is going to have the best clips. Anything even a little longer form, like longer clips or full streams, I haven't taken the time to watch a bunch of full streams. And I don't do that much myself to begin with. But like, if I do, it would be Subaru, because I feel like the more time you spend with her, the funnier she is.
Yeah, that's very much kind of how I've, because those are probably, if I had to identify my 2 favorites, I'd probably say that those are my 2, and I kind of enjoy them in the same way. That for Subaru, I like watching her actual streams. I don't watch them live, but like, it's like I'm very close to the end of her Persona 4 playthrough now, and that's like a fun thing to pick up every now and then and watch some of that or have it on in the background. And then Korone has, you know, I mean, she got like what felt like 100 clips out of that ridiculous fishing.
Yes.
In 64 fishing game thing she did. And I don't think I'd ever sit down and watch that whole like 8-hour stream or whatever she did on that fucking game. But like, you know, that fishing game lived in my life for like a month afterwards because of all the clips kept on coming out of it.
We learned about the fucking Winnie the Pooh baseball game. That alone
Yep.
changed my life a little bit. So I'm glad you had us do this, Sean. It was a very fun. I mean, this took up like a fucking month of our lives here, but I found it very entertaining. It was not what I expected, but I liked this a lot.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that we've come to the end of this. I've enjoyed being able to share this hobby. I don't know if this is a hobby's right word, pastime, this thing on the internet I like to watch with you. I feel like this was successful, that like I just wanted to be able to talk about VTuber stuff without having to plot a multi-year long plan to slowly like get you to do it without you realizing I was getting you to do it, like we did with like Gundam, Japanimation Station and stuff. This is a much more direct method. Just like, hey, fucking watch this shit so I can talk to someone about it, because I do not know anybody else in my daily life down here in Texas working at a public school that watches VTuber stuff. Or if they do, they, like me, would not tell anybody about it.
You don't share this with your students and tell them all about your different favorite VTubers?
Yeah, no, it has yet to have come up. I do not think anybody that I might be literally the only person in that whole school that knows what VTubers are. I would not be surprised if that was the case. There might be one or two of the nerdier freshmen that might be in that world. I don't think we're quite there yet. So it has been fun to be able to. It's been a suitably beneficial birthday present for me to be able to have these conversations.
Well, good. I'm glad. I think this is exactly what we wanted when we talked about doing the birthday podcast idea. And for those wondering, where's Jonathan's birthday podcast, which was delayed because we needed Thomas? Sean and I just recorded that. It's coming out Monday in the normal Monday time slot for the podcast next week. So you will get to, it's not on my birthday as this one was on Sean's birthday, but it is coming. It's also crazy. And if you guys like this birthday podcast thing we did, I would be totally down to do this in the future because it was fun.
Yeah, I think this was a fun project. It was fun coming up with this idea. It was fun being able to do this. And now, the great thing for me is this is the birthday gift that keeps on giving, because now I can just talk about VTuber stuff occasionally on the normal podcast. Because if you go back and listen to podcasts from the past 2 years on the weekly stuff, I will occasionally mention like, oh yeah, I saw some of that game. Like I saw that Pokemon game on like on a game stream. Or I watched a video of that. Like 9 times out of 10, that was me watching a VTuber, and every time I did that, I was like, I'm not going to go through the rigmarole of trying to explain what a VTuber is by even casually mentioning it. Now I no longer have to do that and just pretend that I was just watching some random video. I'll be able to say, yeah, no, I saw Subaru play that, and that is like the gift I have given myself for all weekly stuffs to come.